Hello friends, welcome back to my YouTube channel, or welcome if it's your first time here. My name is Mal and I'm the owner and maker of Made by Manny and Mal. In today's tumbler tutorial, we are going to be making a kind of non-traditional Easter tumbler. Now typically when you think of Easter, you think of pastels and really soft kind of muted colors, and I'm a bright colors kind of gal, so I wanted to make an Easter tumbler that is just really bright, fun, and happy. I had a lot of fun putting this tumbler together and I really hope that you enjoyed the tutorial. Everything I'm using in this video will be listed and linked down below in the description box. I'll also have some discount codes for you, as well as links to all of my social media pages if you'd like to follow along with me anywhere else. I'll also have a link to my Facebook group, as well as a link to join my exclusive mentorship group, MBMM Elite. So be sure to check those out as well. Okay, I think that's it. I really hope you enjoy this video. Let's go. We're going to be creating a vertical split tumbler design here. So we're going to start with our pattern vinyl side. This super cute retro Easter eggs vinyl is from the Vinyl Cottage, and we're going to start by applying that to our tumbler. But first we have to split our tumbler in half vertically. So to do that, I'm going to take my ultimate tumbler tool from CAMIPAIGE Boutique, and I'm going to draw a straight line right up one area of my tumbler, doesn't matter. And then I'm going to take a piece of blue painter's tape and line the edge of my tape up with that line that I drew. And then I'm just going to take the tape and bring it around the bottom of my cup and then lay it down straight, coming right down the other side of the cup, if that makes sense. You might have to do a little bit of adjusting. I did. Sometimes when I eyeball my straight lines, they aren't perfectly straight. So just double check and make sure that everything is as straight as can be. I'm also going to take my measuring tape and measure each half of the cup to make sure that they're even. I'm using a 20-ounce skinny straight tumbler for this design, so I'm looking for measurements that are anywhere from 4.5 to 5 inches wide. The measurements on your cup might vary, so just make sure that your two halves are even. Once I've got my tape evenly placed, I'm going to go in with my pattern vinyl. I'm going to cut off a lot of this excess from the top of the vinyl, and then I'll trim off this bottom white border as well, and then we will apply it to the tumbler. I'll cut off all of the excess from the sides once the vinyl is on the cup. So I'm going to line it up with that piece of tape and then pull back a little bit of the vinyl from the backing, cut away that backing, and then we're going to use this as the anchor to keep our vinyl in place while we make sure that everything is right. So I'm going to line up the straight edge of the vinyl with the straight edge of my tape, wrap it around, make sure that it's going to line up and be correct, and then I'm going to take this big squeegee from the Boan and push the vinyl onto the tumbler, and while I'm doing this, the backing is being pushed away as we go. Once I've reached the other piece of tape on the half of my cup with my vinyl, I'm just going to trim off that excess, and then I'm going to take this straight edge cutting tool. I got this from BAMF Custom Creations at TumblerCon, and it's really helpful for helping you cut a straight line. So you just hook it into the top of your cup and then follow the edge to help you cut straight. So I lined it up with my tape edge, cut the rest of my excess vinyl off, and now I'm ready to move to the top of the cup and cut off the excess vinyl up there. So I'm going to pull the vinyl really tightly up over the top rim, trim off all of the excess, and then I'll take my knife again at about a 45-degree angle, and I'm going to shave off all of the excess vinyl that might be hanging out a little bit too far up the rim. What we're trying to do here is start to establish that thin line of stainless steel that's going to help us get a really good seal with our epoxy later. So I'm going to shave that off, then move to the bottom of the cup. I'm going to push this excess vinyl over that bottom rim a little bit. We don't have too much excess down here. I'm going to hit it with my heat gun too to make sure that it's really well adhered to the cup, and then I'll go in with my cup edging tool from CAMIPAIGE Boutique and just trim off all of that excess vinyl, get rid of all the wrinkly bits, and then we've got a really clean edge at the bottom. Now that our pattern vinyl is applied to the first half of our tumbler, we're going to move to the second half. So I'm going to take some more painter's tape, tape off the edges of my vinyl, and we're going to base paint this half of our tumbler. I'm using white acrylic paint. This is the Delta Ceramcoat brand. You can use any white base paint that you prefer. I'm going to do a pretty hefty coat on my cup, let it fully dry. I think it took about 40 minutes to fully dry. And then I'm going to go in with the epoxy method to apply our glitter. So I'm going to apply a very thin, even layer of epoxy to this half of my cup. I am ignoring the bottom. We're going to finish that off later, so I'm not paying any attention to that right now. The glitter we're using for this half of the tumbler is Chunky Parabatai from Peachy Olive Glitters. Now, Chunky Parabatai is a very chunky, obviously, glitter. So I'm going to go in after I've got the glitter applied, and with a gloved hand, I'm going to pat down all of those pokey bits and try to get the glitter to just lay as flat as possible. Once I'm done with that, I'm going to immediately remove all of my tape, let my cup dry for a couple hours, and then I'm going to go in and seal this side of glitter. I'm using my favorite mix for sealing. This is a 50-50 mix of the Crystalac glitter glue and water. I'm going to brush that on, let it dry for 2 hours, and then I'm going to add 2 coats of epoxy to my tumbler, and now we're ready to do our sanding. We're going to be doing some semi-transparent vinyl on this side of our tumbler, so we want to make sure that it is not only completely smooth but also glossy. So I'm going to do all of this sanding, and then I'm going to add another coat of epoxy to my tumbler so that we don't have any sanding marks or dullness showing through the clear portions of our semi-transparent vinyl. Now, instead of just applying this vinyl like normal to this half of the tumbler, I want to do a little bit of a like peekaboo / cutout type thing. The decal we're using is printed on clear Waterslide, and I want that to go directly onto the white glitter versus onto the checkerboard pattern. So we're going to slice a circle out of our vinyl. To do that, I am measuring this half of our cup, and I'm going to create a template in Silhouette Studio that we can use to cut this out and make sure that everything is evenly spaced and correctly placed on the tumbler. Alright, so we're in Silhouette Studio, and the first thing I'm going to do is create a vertical rectangle shape, and I'm going to input the dimensions of our half of the cup. So for my tumbler, this is going to be 8 inches tall by 4.75 inches wide. Now, of course, this depends on the type of tumbler you're using and how thick your epoxy layers are, so you want to measure right before you create your template. The next thing I'm going to do is create a circle. This is what we're going to slice out of the vinyl where our water slide is going to go. I decided to make this 3.75 inches wide, which will leave us with about a 1/2 inch of the vinyl on each side of the circle. So once I've got the circle created, I'm going to put it on top of the rectangle, make sure that they are centered. I'm going to highlight them both and then center them. And then this will vary in Silhouette Studio versus Cricut Design Space, but what you're going to do is duplicate your circle, set it off to the side, and then we want to cut the circle out of the rectangle. So in Cricut, this would just be the slice function, but in Silhouette Studio, you will highlight them both, right click, and then hit Make Compound Path, and that's going to cut that circle right out of that rectangle. So next, what I want to do is create an outline that we can put around the circle later. So I'm going to take that second circle that I duplicated, create an offset of that circle. I made this 0.08 inches wide, I believe. I didn't want anything too thin, but I also didn't want it to be too thick and like overpower the whole thing. So once I had the offset created, I did the same thing. I highlighted both of them, right clicked, and then hit Make Compound Path to slice the original circle out of the outline. And you can see here as we align everything, we center it all together, that circle is going to perfectly outline the cutout pattern of our vinyl. So I'm going to just cut this out right onto that semi-transparent vinyl that we're using, and then we can apply it to the tumbler. I'm using my paper trimmer to trim off all of this excess vinyl and trying to get an accurate cut. I want to save as much of this vinyl as I can because I really like it and I want to use it again. So I cut off all of the excess and then weeded the excess from the other two edges, and I'm just going to cut off all of that white backing. So we're left with just the vinyl that we're going to put on the cup. And then I'm going to weed out that middle circle, that's our cutout. I'm going to save that as well so I can use it for something else. And then I'm going to take my transfer tape, and I'm using transfer tape that has a grid pattern on it, so I can line one of those straight lines up with the straight edge of the pattern and use that to just help me get everything placed correctly. So I'm going to take the edge of my vinyl, line it up with the straight edge of my tape, and make sure that everything is lined up correctly. Everything should fit perfectly on the tumbler. We're not going to have to cut off any excess from the top, bottom, or sides. This is going to fit perfectly in that space. given that all of our measurements are correct. So I'm going to put that on, peel back a little bit of the backing, and push the vinyl onto the tumbler the same way that we did with our first half pattern vinyl. I'm using the BIG Squeeg again to help me push this on. And don't worry if you have any bubbles or wrinkles. You'll see that I have a ton of them, especially towards the bottom, but it's really easy to fix them. So I'm going to smooth this onto my tumbler, remove my transfer tape, and then I'm going to take a really sharp craft knife and start to pop all of those bubbles. This process becomes a whole lot easier when you use semi-transparent vinyl because you can use those clear spots to your advantage. So you can just go in and poke a little hole in the clear spot, push out any excess air or whatever's in there, and then if you need to, you can just cut away those clear sections. Like if they're super wrinkled and you just can't get them smoothed out, you can just cut them out and remove them. You don't have to worry about making them perfectly smooth. You can just get rid of them. So I'm just going to go through and get rid of as many of these bubbles and wrinkles as I can. Of course, using a sharp craft knife will make this a lot easier as well. You can either poke a hole or cut a little slit. Really all you want to do is create an opening for that air to escape. Next, we are going to finish off the bottom of our tumbler, so I'm taking some electrical tape. I'm lining the edge of my tape up with my pattern vinyl straight lines, and I'm just going to tape off the bottom of the cup, and then take some more blue painter's tape to tape that off a little more, and then I'm going to block off the rest of my tumbler. I'm using a piece of scrapbook paper, just taped it around the cup. You can use saran wrap or whatever you have is totally fine. You just don't want any spray paint overspray anywhere on the cup except for the bottom. So I'm using light blue spray paint from Montana Colors, and the glitter we're using is Bejeweled from Peachy Olive Glitters. And I used the spray paint as my adhesive for my glitter, so I went outside, spray painted my cup really quick, came right back in and glittered immediately. And that really helps the glitter stick, especially if you're using a fine cut. It always works out okay for me, but of course you can use Mod Podge or glitter glue or whatever you prefer. Once I had the glitter on, I removed the scrapbook paper and the tape, set my cup aside and let it dry for about 30 minutes, and then I gave it a good solid coat of clear gloss spray from Rust-Oleum to seal that glitter and prevent it from moving all over the cup. Now we're ready to apply our Waterslide decal. So this is clear Waterslide. I found this image on Etsy. I printed it out and sealed it 3 times with Rust-Oleum clear gloss spray. I have a Canon inkjet printer and I print on the glossy photo paper setting. So once it was sealed and totally dry, I put it into a tub of lukewarm water and I let it sit in there for about 1 to 2 minutes. You want to make sure that it is coming off the backing easily. While the Waterslide is sitting in the water, I'm going to apply our vinyl striping to each half of the cup. I'm using silver textured metallic vinyl from Cricut, and I cut these stripes out. I just cut a bunch of them at once so I have them on hand. I believe these are cut at 0.08 inches wide. My Waterslide is ready to apply, so I'm going to get the surface of my tumbler wet. You can use a coffee filter, paper towel, tissue paper, whatever works best for you. And because we're using a clear Waterslide image, we're going to apply this in the reverse. So you can do this with clear Waterslide. You can't do it with white backed Waterslide, but I'm basically just going to apply this like a temporary tattoo. I'm going to put this down face down, and then I'm just going to slide the backing away and you can see the image is applied perfectly. Now, if you're going to do this with a Waterslide that has any wording on it, you want to make sure that you mirror or flip your image before you print it so that when you apply it the words are reading the right way. So once I have the water slide on, I'm going to brush out any excess water with my coffee filter and my silicone makeup brush, dry everything off really well, and then I'm going to set it aside and let it dry for, I think I let it sit for about 40 minutes. And once it was totally dry, I added the circle outline to our cutout. I cut this out of the same silver textured metallic vinyl from Cricut, and I just applied it by hand. I did not want to use transfer tape and risk ruining my image when I pulled the transfer tape up. So I sealed my vinyl with some polyacrylic, and then after that was dry, I went in with my final 2 coats of epoxy. So that's it, you guys. I really love how this cup turned out. I love the bright colors and the happy vibes, and I really hope that you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure you hit the thumbs up button down below. Subscribe to my channel if you're not already so you don't miss any of my new videos. I upload brand new Tumbler tutorials every Tuesday and Saturday. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate you, and I'll see you in the next one. Okay, love you. Bye.
Oreo. What are the words I'm thinking about? Okay. Oh God. I hate when this happens. Okay. I hope you enjoy it. All the words left my brain. Okay.